Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to another episode of War Thunder Replays. So today we're looking at a beautiful F-84 G21 no re. Sorry, I'm an idiot. And he is going to have a fantastic match today. This is Pilot784cubed. So Pilot has been featured on Mags's channel, which if you have not checked that out, Mags is a propeller head like Pilot himself, and really fond of the flight simulators. Now we can already see that there's a couple of R2Y2s above us, which is no surprise. In fact, there's a third ME-163 also pushing aggressively, and Pilot is wisely keeping his altitude at a reasonable level in order to maximize his straight line speed. In the F-84, you definitely want to be a speedy boy as much as possible, as you have a max speed that is at the most competitive with other vehicles that you will face at your tier. It is definitely a good idea to get that speed high and keep it there, and really try to maintain that straight line speed. This is a zoom and then boom aircraft. So as a jet, the F-84G is a fantastic tool in the hands of an experienced player, and its playstyle is really not too difficult a one, as long as you are disciplined and you only engage when you have an advantage. You keep your energy high, and you don't just go for what instinctually would be your normal attack run. The F-84 also fares reasonably well in a head-on, though that is not recommended. And here it looks like Pilot is targeting perhaps the ME-262 as he zooms up underneath. Can he rip out the belly? Looks like from the replay he couldn't quite get his guns on target, but keep in mind that this is a replay, and even with that quick burst of movement, he's down to under 300 miles per hour airspeed. He is definitely at a disadvantage at this point, and he wisely pulls away as there are enemies coming in already. Head on with an ME-262. The lad's insane, and he manages to roll out of the way of that massive volley of 30mm cannon fire. Things are heating up already. He did take a glancing blow on his ancillary fuel tank there on the wing. Head on with a Horton 229, manages to take him down, but takes some serious damage to his tail. This is, with the cannon buff, a very lucky survival for Pilot at this time, and you can see that he's not quite so high on energy that he can afford to maneuver with these enemies. He's pulled some clever head-ons here, not flying directly for the enemy, not overcommitting, but definitely pulling these quick, close passes, using the high fire rate of his 50 cals to score hits on the enemy, and being aggressive. And that is a wise move in this battle, as he's facing ME-262s, Horton 229s, ME-163s, things that can definitely run him down and gun him down if he lets them get the energy advantage. Now, he's done a quick zoom climb here up to 2,900 meters, which is not by any means a safe altitude, and I believe he performs better on the deck, so he's going to pick up speed more slowly here, but it gives him a little bit of a cushion between him and low-flying enemies, so that if they decide to zoom up toward him, he does have some time to react and a few options to choose his avenue of escape. It's at this point that I would be playing more defensively. It might even be a time that I would consider going back to the airstrip, but that's not Pilot. Flying very aggressively here, using his roll rate and what he has left of an elevator to avoid the shots from that 262, who's now circling around as the sky shark that he is to get onto Pilot's tail, and he is closing, so that means Pilot wisely is nosing down here to get some dive speed. Is he going after the other ME-262? We will shortly find out. There are other 262s in the area. The Sharks are circling. Pilot needs to maneuver here, but he needs to choose his targets very carefully. 262 off to, or sorry, 163 off to his left. Now Pilot can beat a 163 in straight line speed, but when it comes to vertical maneuvers or any kind of a turning fight, the 163 has a serious advantage. Looks like he is smoking though, so it's going to be difficult for that enemy to catch up to him. Pilot is stalking this 262, seeing that he's engaged an ally already, well aware of the airfield off to his left. Now Pilot going into first-person view to line up an attack run on that ground target, because why not? Plenty of American 50 cals for everyone as he closes range with the Sky Shark ME-262 within 4 km, which is getting into the danger zone when it comes to jet aircraft. Now that ME-262 was maneuvering earlier, and now he's pulling a turn. If it comes down to a turn fight, there's that Sky Shark on his tail that's now closing in for an attack run. He's going to have to use the roll rate here to get out of the way, and he does. Now he's turning to face the 163 who was on his tail, and he has that 262 on him again. And that 262 is not going to relent. He's going to come in close and spray as much as he can. 163 opens up with the cannons, manages to connect, takes down the rocket fighter. That gives him a little bit more of a breathing room, but not much, with that 262 starting to open up with 30 millimeters as he closes the distance. Pilot turning now, seeing that one of the Sky Sharks has pulled away, and another 262 gleefully entering into a head-on. Pilot takes his shots and takes him down. Takes a few hits to the fuselage, but surprisingly holds together. This airplane has taken some serious damage, and now the tail is all but useless as Pilot continues to take fire from the ground. These ships are really proving quite a nuisance at this point. What map even is this? Well, is this Spain? Oh my gosh, I think it's Spain. Man, I hate that map. Pilot now with a very... It looks like he's getting a little bit less performance out of his engine, which makes sense. And suddenly, ground fire snipes his tail control. If you look at the aircraft now, all the control surfaces going to the rear of the aircraft have been destroyed. That is catastrophic damage. At this point, Pilot is a dead man walking. But with 3 kills, I know he has more yet to do in this match, and that's what absolutely blows my mind. He's been playing very aggressively here, but also using good tactical sense, shifting targets and engaging enemies as the opportunity arises, but you do not have that option as he uses the flaps to nose up the airplane. Again, no tail control. Can you believe it? Freaking Spain, with an enemy looked like a machine gun caliber round, came in and sniped his tail control. How do you feel about that, Pilot? How do you feel about AI anti-aircraft guns? I'm guessing that you feel similar to myself. So now he's limping back to base, and this is a great time to talk about the state of Air RB as Pilot checks his 6 very quickly to make sure there's no enemy fighters on his tail. He would be completely helpless at this point. Air RB is one of those game modes that I believe is well crafted but showing its age. And unfortunately, with hundreds upon hundreds of aircraft in dozens of classifications, balancing this game mode in a PvP environment is extremely difficult, to the point where I believe that Air RB is well and good. It's a proven game mode, but we need more. Is he going to extend the landing gear? Now he's using the freedom brake, and he's going to belly land the jet aircraft. This is something I actually have not practiced before, and with no tail control, he's not going to have rudder control to line up his airframe to make sure it doesn't rip off the wings. But Pilot, with a very nice emergency landing there, is going to be able to repair. So, the future of AirRB. This is one of those game modes where, well, I've already talked about it. What I saw with the now somewhat distant mass test of RB enduring confrontation was that planes that I would never use in AirRB unless I was, spading them or whatever, planes that are not meta in PvP are suddenly now, as Pilot now gets the repair, they're suddenly usable when you put them in an environment where they can perform. And that is no surprise to anyone. So your ground attackers can attack ground targets and not be constantly intercepted by enemy fighters. Fighters have a plethora of choices, not just head-to-head air superiority engagements, but bomber interception. Long-range missions where they fly to high altitude and take out enemy observation AI planes, which in itself can be fun just to have something new to do. What else can fighters do? They can go after those ground attackers, but they have to keep in mind, if there's any enemy fighters flying cover, you become a target. And if you die, you jump into a new plane and you respawn with no break in the action, no going back to a hangar, and you can decide, you know what, there's some juicy ground targets, I'm going to spawn in an attacker. Or, oh, hey, that base just spawned and it's pretty close to my airfield, I'm going to get in a bomber and bomb that. Or, I feel like being a scumbag, how about I load up my B-29 and climb to 6K altitude and then bomb the enemy's airstrip? But at least there's 2 more airstrips, right? So, all in all, Enduring Confrontation is one of those game modes that I truly believe breathes new life into AirRB, and I think it's a true shame that it's been pushed into the corner into the sim community, which is, as a former sim player, I enjoyed it, but the sim game mode is not really, it's not the most rewarding and fun game mode for me. And it also takes a lot of commitment for things like time and attention span that are in short supply these days, with the tank baby making so many of those demands on me. To get back into the action, Pilot784 now has pulled a cheeky head-on with an ME-163. Very nice roll to avoid the enemy fire, firing his 50 cals just enough ahead of time and well aimed to get a solid critical hit on the rocket aircraft, which, as you know, in a jet, critical damage to your aircraft can be a serious detriment. ME-262 Sky Shark now just spraying like crazy with the 30 mils, and Pilot flying very defensively here, but also attempting to maintain his energy so that he can pull away, and that's exactly what he's able to do at this point, but he's still well within deadly range of those shotgun rounds. Is this? Yes, he is. The 262 still spraying, but Pilot, with his eyes on, watching closely the enemy here, is very, very elegantly avoiding the enemy's fire as he pulls out of effective range of that 262. He got jumped by an enemy jet, but because he played properly, and here with his speed at above 500 miles per hour, he's pulling away from the 262 with no issues. That was an exciting encounter. This is jet combat. Awareness, number 1. Energy retention, number 2. And playing your aircraft to its strengths and knowing the stats of your enemy, absolutely essential. In every way, that 262 had the advantage, but Pilot was able to pull away because of his aircraft's better top end performance. Very nicely done. Very smooth moves there in order to avoid getting taken down. And you may have noticed this is something of a marathon match, and that's something that I actually enjoy about Air RB. When you really get into it, even the moments in between engagements where your positioning can be exciting, they can be tense, and you come out of a match like this just flush with adrenaline. And Pilot here, not afraid to go into a head-on with that 262, fires his shots and rolls out of the way. Now he's stalking the second 262, knowing that that Sky Shark on his tail is going to lose a lot of energy in that turn. Pilot modifying his dive rate here to continue to maintain his total energy while still having enough speed to pull away from the 262 on his tail. When you pull a big turn like that, as you see, you lose energy fast. And Pilot, again, very much using his top speed, high-end performance advantage to give him the best possible chance at defeating these enemies. What map is this? This is one that I'm not really familiar with. Where are we? It's this one. Is that Hokkaido? What are we looking at here? Milea Kemuna Walls Bahar 2. Yeah, okay, maybe it's Hokkaido. I don't know. It doesn't sound like Hokkaido. I don't know this map. Maybe I need to get back into RRB. 262 now pulling a sharp turn. Pilot's going to have to choose carefully how to engage, and he can't quite get his guns on target. This is draining a huge amount of his energy. We can see the dot of the pursuing 262 that was on his tail, and Pilot wisely not maneuvering with that 262, but turning to engage the enemy on his tail. This is a familiar scene. He's not afraid to go into a head-on here, and that 262, again, knowing that he's in a 2-on-1, not afraid to maneuver. Pilot still keeping his speed above 500 so that he can have the advantage over these 262s, and as I say that, actually, he's turning here. He needs to take one of these guys out at some point, or he's sure to be taken down. Now, they're both heading toward their own airfield, which is a hint that perhaps they're low on ammunition or fuel. So this is Pilot's chance, and he is going to go for it. Again, taking ground fire here, and Pilot must have a vendetta against these ground targets as he puts a quick spray into that, probably an artillery position, but then doesn't quite get enough time on target to take down the AA. Harvesting a few points, are we? Now he's going to have one more shot, and it looks like it's going to be difficult to line up the nose. He's already behind, sprays at the 262, and catches up to him just in time to tear off a wing. Good night, sweet prince, to your Teutonic grave you go. And in Viking fashion, the 262 explodes in a fireball on the ground. Now it's 1v1, head-to-head, mano-a-mano, head-on pass, pulls away. 262 flies right toward those 50s, but doesn't manage to catch enough for a significant hit. And now Pilot in something of a vertical roll. We're stall fighting the 262 here. As the F-84 quickly stalls out, Pilot, is he going to use the flaps? It may be combat flaps here that he's using. I think not going heavy, keeping his advantage as far as energy. Now he's got the 262, and with a well-placed burst, he picks up his 5th kill in magnificent fashion. This has been an incredible match, and the only thing that's really gotten in the way of Pilot absolutely dominating this match was AI ground fire. And boy howdy, can I tell you that when you have one life, taking hits from AI ground fire is absolutely infuriating. But to bring this back to it during confrontation, if you have more chances to respawn to the point where you can respawn an attacker to target that ground fire and take it out of the equation, then it's not so bad that AI ground fire can actually take you down. Pilot, however, dealt with that quite nicely, and now he's wisely continuing to straight line speed his way out here. R2-Y2 is a fantastic jet bomber, with one bomb and a lot of jet as he starts to open up at long range with those 30 cals, or 30 millimeters rather, high velocity 30 mils, unlike the German ones, so much more useful in a long range engagement. But as the R2Y2 is using probably universal from the look of them rounds that include a tracer, Pilot is going to be able to see those rounds coming in and adjust himself in time. He's now building a serious energy advantage over the R2Y2. The downside of the killer whale of the skies is that R2Y2 is a fatty, and it's something of an overweight plane for its engine power if you're trying to use it in a fighter role. As a fighter bomber, it functions just fine, with a bit of an issue in that its top speed, or its rip speed, is somewhat of a disadvantage at this battle rating. However, now R2Y2 is going to be in some serious trouble. He is going to get a shot on Pilot here. Pilot maneuvering, using that roll rate advantage to avoid the R2Y2, and it would be unwise for this Japanese plane to turn with Pilot at this time, but that may be exactly what he has to do, as Pilot is now looping around, pulling a stall maneuver here. This R2Y2 is going to get another shot at him, so Pilot rolls over, tries to keep himself below the guns of the R2Y2 as he does take a hit. That's extremely dangerous. Now he's in close range, low energy, with a 430mm cannon wielding Sky Whale on his tail, as Pilot realizes he may have gotten himself in a little bit over his head, using his dive speed to pull away. He's going to need to get some separation before he tries to turn with that Japanese jet again. Even though this is not the lightweight monster with extreme elevator authority that the Japanese are very fond of building at this point, he is going to need to have a much higher speed advantage over this killer whale before he can take it down. Another head-on, and we know Pilot is not afraid to pull these maneuvers, manages to pull away before the enemy's rounds can take him down. Pilot again going into the vertical here, again going to have to turn and avoid incoming fire as he pulls some extreme rolls and elevator manipulations here to try and get the R2Y2 to stall out. That's it, maximum flaps. Now Pilot is in the advantage. He's won the stall fight. R2Y2 is going to take quite some time to recover from that stalling maneuver, giving Pilot time to open up with the 50 cals as he sprays. Not quite on target, getting closer. Definitely in the sights now as the R2Y2 goes down in flames for Pilot's 6th kill. So this is the nature of one life to live in Air RB. There are advantages and disadvantages, frustrations and victory, and every now and then you get a match like this one where skill shows through, boldness takes its place, and the F-84 shows itself as the king of the skies to this day. Anyway guys, I'll catch you in the next one, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about more things coming to Air RB, especially a new meta. Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
Walked up to a lemonade stand and he said to the man running the stand, "Hey, bump, 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 got any grapes?" The man said, "No, we just sell lemonade, but it's cold and it's fresh and it's all homemade. Can I get you a glass?" The duck said, "I'll pass."